SX Ed teachers of Reddit, what is the stupidest question you've ever gotten? A kid in my health class asked if you could keep sperm. When I was about 12-13 I asked my SX Ed teacher if people could get an orgasm with food. She answered me that it would depend on where do you put the food. I wasn't expecting that. My mom was raised in the Soviet Union. There was no sex education. She got pregnant at 17. Married my dad, etc. We started talking about sex ed and she blurts out, I was so stupid that I thought you only got pregnant if you're in a certain position. Cue horrified face and drop of subject. This was a question asked by me when I was in 7th grade. My teacher had explained what ejaculation was and for some reason, my 7th grade mind thought it was the boy equivalent to periods. I asked where boys put tampons. Yay. That was embarrassing. Cousin was a sex ed teacher for a while, before he got his girlfriend pregnant and had to take a higher paying job. Irony. Anyway, this kid asked if he could get a gorilla pregnant because he wasn't interested in girls. Anyway, this kid asked if he could get a gorilla pregnant because he wasn't interested in girls. Someone asked that in my sex ed class once. The teacher, without missing a beat, said, "Isn't that how you were born?" He quickly turned red and apologized, realizing what he had done. It was a student asking a possibly genuine question, not him being smart with his friends over some beers. It was too late. The entire class was already laughing at him and he was known as Gorilla Boy from that day on. The sex ed teacher was telling us that the semen is alkaline and the vagina is acidic. A kid in my class blurted out, "So wouldn't that form a salt and water?" Sounds like he participates in chemistry class. Yeah. A black guy posted in an Reddit thread a while ago about how he thought, as a child, that white people shitty white poops. I think he said that he imagined it looking something like a peeled banana. Why don't you come over here and find out? I always hated the pictures of a STD riddled penis or vagina followed by the obvious joke, "Doesn't everyone's look like that?" Knew a kid that passed out after seeing those. Volunteered at a teen education program for Planned Parenthood in the late 80s. Had a 16-year-old or so girl that had gotten pregnant but swore she had used the pill. Turns out she was inserting the pill into lady parts instead of ingesting orally. This seems not so stupid as much as misinformed. Not a teacher, but in high school our health teacher, during the sex ed unit, told us a story of a student who was now graduated, who was told by her mother that if a boy poked her in the belly button she would get pregnant. Enter high school. During her junior year she was poked in the belly button by a boy in her circle group. So she slapped him and broke down into uncontrollable sobs. It took nearly half an hour to convince her that no, she wasn't pregnant. Could you imagine if this was true and everything does get pregnant by a swift poke in the belly button? The Pillsbury Doughboy would be FK'd. Was taking a bath when about 8 months pregnant. X walks in. All color drains from his face and he panics. He thought the baby's umbilical cord was attached to my belly button and that with my belly button underwater, I was in fact drowning our child. It's a snorkel. In 4th grade sex ed a friend of mine raised his hand and asked if it was possible to break a boner like you can your arm. The teacher answered no, I've since learned that you can sprain it. We went the rest of the year thinking our boners were invincible, occasionally running around yelling super boner. What happened if a penis gets stuck in a vagina? Grade 7. One kid during an open question portion of our sex ed class in middle school asked if a penis has a bone in it, and the teacher said no. He responded with "OHHHH no." He was always really weird in school, but now that I'm older I think he was just a legendary troll. When I was like 8, I used to think that getting a boner was bad. I was like worried I don't want to hurt my girl. How can this be fun for any of us? I heard about men being incapable of having sex and needing Viagra. In my ignorant mindset, I thought Viagra was used to make you go soft limp. comma, if I have sex underwater and get pregnant, will the baby be a mermaid? Dot. Responded with the deepest sigh ever and a slow turn to the next question. Not a sex ed teacher, but I'm a middle school teacher. One boy, 13, told me he wasn't going to get his girlfriend pregnant because she always douched with Coca-Cola after sex. Lana Del Rey. Is it normal for one of your testicles to be smaller than the other two? No. That small one is cancer. Next. If a white man has sex with a black woman and then has sex with a white woman, can the white woman have a black baby? Actions. Edit. Can your boner fall off if it gets too hard? I'm not a teacher, but when I was pregnant with my first child, I got in a huge argument with all of my other co-workers over the baby's location. They said it was in the uterus. They swore it was on top of the uterus. You think you know everything just cause you got pregnant for a few months? I've been a mother for 30 years. I know what I'm talking about. Not a sex ed teacher, but I've had my younger brother come to me for help. He wanted me to buy him and his girlfriend Plan B. Being the good older brother that I am, sometimes I drove them to Shoppers and paid $40 for the Plan B. She takes it. Then I lecture them on safe sex practices. I see a dumb look on their faces. I immediately ask if they knew what condoms were for. His girlfriend, with a completely serious face, looked at me and said, "But I don't like the taste of condoms." Yeah. That's right. He got his first blowjob. Came in her mouth. She swallowed and thought she was going to get pregnant. You just paid a $40 idiot tax by proxy. Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it? Not a sex ed teacher, but it's still relevant. I had a roommate in my first year of college who was extremely naive and didn't know anything about sex. Her family was very religious and didn't talk about that stuff. We had to explain to her what a lot of things were, but we assumed she knew the very basics. One day there's a few of us girls sitting around talking about sex. We brought up masturbation and wondered if she had ever tried it before. I yelled to her in the other room, "Hey Emily, have you ever masturbated before?" Her response was UHH. I think it's happened to me before. We were all incredibly confused by this answer, so we asked her to explain. She explained simply that she thinks it's happened to her once or twice before. Turns out she didn't even know what masturbation was. She explained that she thought it was the tingly feeling you get when you like a boy. Is the G-spot where the gangsters hang out? Serious question this girl asked my senior year in high school. It wasn't stupid per se, but I'll never forget this one all-girls class I taught. They asked, earnestly, "When do boys get their period?" We told them never. And they wanted to know what boys get instead. When we told them that there was no real equivalent for boys, I thought there was going to be a riot. One of my friends in high school took health as a senior, after already having taken honors anatomy and physiology and AP biology. He was in a class full of freshmen, so he played dumb the whole time. Whenever the teacher introduced a new organ or topic, e.g., the metatarsals, he'd raise his hand and ask, with a straight, slightly confused face, "Is that where the penis goes?" I would be laughing my ass off the entire time if they were in my class. My Russian Orthodox roommate once asked me, in a whisper, "A blowjob is the same as a quickie, right? Having intercourse so fast that it just blows right by?" Took every ounce of willpower I had to not spontaneously combust from laughter. Once I delicately explained a blowjob. She said, "Oh my god. People do that? With their mouth? That must be the most perverted thing a person can do." Dead serious. 2. Not a sex ed teacher, but in 7th grade English class my classmate asked a monk what the significance of the number 69 was. Yes, we had Catholic monks as teachers. 69, as a number, had come up in a story. There were 3 numbers on a card that added up to 69. One of the more brash fellows in the class knew what it meant and started laughing and yelling 69. Small kid in the corner decided to ask the monk what it meant. The monk tried to dodge the question, but the kid was annoyingly persistent. The monk then proceeded to awkwardly explain the SX position without using the words penis, vagina, or oral sex. If you have sex with a lesbian, will you turn into a hunchback? Probably. Not a sex ed teacher, but a friend of mine knew a guy who impregnated a girl because he wore the condom on his ball sack. Yeah. That guy called her used sex ed. Edit. Whoa. I'm so happy this is my most upvoted comment on Reddit. Can't say I'm surprised. You all sure know how to make a gal's day. Or a brain. I'm not a sex ed teacher. English actually. But I have gotten a couple questions that made me do a double take. The one that sticks out the most was when 2 girls were arguing in my class. I got them to stop and asked what was going on. One girl answered, "Emma Spodson, isn't it true that if the girl doesn't have an orgasm that they can't get pregnant?" Before I could answer, the other girl yells, "No. Dumbus. The girl can get pregnant anytime a boy pees in here." I can't decide which is worse. That one girl was obviously being lied to by her inept, bumbling boyfriend. Or that the other girl learned about sex from Cartman. Edit. I have gotten a lot of comments about a couple of typos. This seems to have upset a great many people because I am an English teacher. Therefore I am leaving them in with today's lesson. If the only flaw you can find with an argument is the spelling, you won't sound as clever as you think with your observation. Not a sex ed teacher, but was a student in a sex ed class years ago. We had a question box where anyone who was shy could drop a question in and have it answered by the teacher. Every day the box came around and I wrote down, "How do you beat your meat, Zach?" My name's not Zach, but the dickhead who sat next to me was. He got yelled at almost daily. Edit. Thanks M8S. Not a teacher, but still relevant. In high school I had a friend who really wanted to have sex but also thought protection was just super inconvenient. One day, he was bragging to me about how he lost his virginity. Not wanting him to reproduce, I asked him if he at least used protection, to which he replied, "No, we didn't need to. We were both virgins." When I asked why that mattered, he replied, "Nobody gets pregnant their first time. It's like a freeb. Anyway, she gets knocked up and he concludes she must not have been a virgin since. You know. That's the only explanation. They break up and he starts screwing around with someone else. Thinking he finally learned his lesson, I ask him if he's at least using protection this time. And, once again, he says no. Baffled, I ask why he isn't and he tells me they are just making sure she's on top because she can't get pregnant when she's on top because of gravity. TLDNR. He's paying oh so much child support and I'm left fighting back a fascipum-induced aneurysm. We could write questions on paper to remain anonymous. So my friend wrote, and I quote, "If gay guys like things going in their bum, do they get aroused when poo comes out of their bum?" Total troll mode. But it did result in our gym teacher saying "Goddammit." A kid in my class for 5th grade sex ed asked, "Would you die if you cut your penis off?" If a girl doesn't want a baby, why can't she just pee it out early? If there are people in this group that have questions about sex, please ask them. Whether you are afraid to sound stupid or not. Sex is a complicated thing sometime and the information one gets is not always correct. I think this is all evidence that we need a better sex ed curriculum for teenagers that is not abstinence only. Not a question. But one time I was substituting for an 8th grade sex ed class. The teacher wanted me to show a focus on the family video. They are an extremely right-wing, sex-phobic, anti-gay organization. Fortunately, the video described itself as the ultimate guide to teenage sex in the 90s. As this was about 2010, I told the students that if any of them planned on having sex in the 90s, to pay attention to the video. Otherwise I'll let them chill and ignore the terrible video. Not so much stupid as really sad. I've had people ask me if the pill will really work for them, since they were told by abstinence only FKs that the pill doesn't work on women under 25 because their hormones are out of whack. I've known girls who got knocked up because they'd been told you can't get pregnant your first time. I don't think any of these people are stupid. They have been willfully misinformed their entire lives. It's beyond sad, and it absolutely disgusts me that my state refuses comprehensive sex ed and doesn't require that it be medically accurate. And that's just heterosexual people. LGBT folks get absolutely no sex ed, because that would be encouraging the lifestyle. STD rates are sky high among gay people because no one ever sat them down and discussed the risks of sex with them. Science teacher was teaching about artificial insemination to year 7, explained that the sperm and the egg were put together in the petri dish. Well, how do they get the sperm? After being a teacher for 7 years, I never expected such naivety. I tried to explain in less scientific terms. Then I tried to explain scientifically. In 5th grade I asked what a mangina was because I heard it on the boondocks at my cousin's house. I got kicked out of the classroom and wasn't allowed back. Obligatory. I'm not a sex ed teacher. A classmate asked how babies are made. He straight up didn't know. He thought it was done by kissing, and that the tongue had to play effective hockey to prevent the seed from fertilizing the egg, which was found in the stomach. This was 8th grade. I didn't really know what masturbation was until the 8th grade. I saw 2 kids making the jerk-off motion. Finally put 2 and 2 together, and had a glorious evening. Ugh, this is making me really self-conscious since I was that ignorant kid. I didn't have a proper sex ed class until my freshman year of college because I went to religious private schools my whole life. I wasn't stupid, but there was a lot for me to learn. I once asked if it was safer to wear 2 condoms, and some loudmouthed trashy bitch openly laughed in my face in front of everyone. I never asked another question again in that class. Not a sex ed teacher, but a kid in my class asked, "What's breasts?" Not a sex ed teacher, but when I was 22 my friend, who was slightly older, asked if a girl could get pregnant if a guy's semen genes came into contact with her. In an anonymous question box at the end, "How do I stop watching anime PRN?" I said that they should just not watch it. Not a sex ed teacher, but when I had to take sex ed in middle school, another student asked the teacher how many Dixie cups could a girl fill up during her period. Not a stupid question. I've often wondered this myself. Is mayonnaise a condom? There are no stupid questions in sex ed. It's a room full of kids who are at different stages of development and from different backgrounds, who are confused, embarrassed, and scared enough just listening to the class without worrying people think their misunderstanding is stupid. A kid asked his mother, "Mom, how come mine's bigger than dad's?" O circumflex Y with diaresis E acute not REKT. O circumflex Y with diaresis A ligature REKT. There are no stupid questions when it comes to ignorance. If the person truly doesn't know, then it's up to someone who does to show them the correct answer. You can't fault someone for wanting to learn. Everybody is born knowing nothing, so they can grow to learn everything. I disagree. Plenty of questions are stupid. That is an entirely different animal than the questioner being stupid. My brother was demonstrating the use of a condom on a DLDO for his sex ed class. One student says, "How do I not make it hurt?" "What do you mean?" "Well, it seems like usually only my penis fits." I taught sex ed for years. I didn't think any question was stupid. I live in a society in which most of the kids I worked with weren't ever taught anything scientifically accurate about human sexuality until they met me. I never told a kid that their question was stupid, and I never would. I couldn't expect them to ask intelligent questions when their parents told them that babies come from stalks. And every other adult they have encountered told them that if they have sex they will get herpes and die. So, to me, what's really stupid is how adults are so afraid to talk to young people about literally the most natural thing that humans do in order to survive as a species. All that being said, a lot of kids ask if you can get pregnant from oral sex. I took a sex ed course at my college freshman year to fulfill a credit requirement. Some girl asked if you can get pregnant if a guy were to masturbate next to you in a pool because his swimmers swim. Right? College sex ed. She was an adult. Here come questions from Christian teenagers. I'm Christian teenager. Had sex ed in 6th grade at Catholic school. Then had it again during 9th grade health class. Not a teacher but I had my first sex ed class in 3rd grade. The principal was leading the discussion to a room full of boys. Principal. And the blood rushes to the penis, it causes an erection. Student raises his hands, principal calls on student.